back up. Damn it. All right. And we are live, everybody. Yay!
Hey,
Huzzah!
All right. So, welcome to Learn to Play Fate, hosted by the Fate SRD. I'd like to thank our volunteers today who wanted to learn to play Fate. Kirst, Tim, Mackenzie, Jim, and Jeremy. Thank you all very much for attending tonight. I'm looking forward to teaching you how to play Fate and playing a little bit of Fate tonight. So over in the chat here on YouTube, if you ask questions, I will answer those questions to the best of my ability. If I miss it in chat, don't fret. Just kind of post the question again. I'm managing a lot of things at once right now for learning to play Fate. So let's go ahead and get right into it. So on the screen right now, there is the presentation that I have up, Learning to Play Fate. I just want to kind of talk through our agenda for today so that we have a shared understanding. So first, for the next hour or so, we're going to work on character creation. So after that, we're going to spend about an hour and 15 minutes playing. I'm hoping that that's going to be enough time for doing the things that we need to do. So as a result, I'm probably going to push us along a little bit faster than I normally would during a game, because I want to make sure that we hit some highlights and some points of, I want to try and show off conflicts and contests and challenges in that hour and 45 or hour and 15 minutes. And then for the last 15 minutes, I want to wrap up and just talk about find out what you learned, what you liked, what you didn't like, ways that we might be able to improve this whole experience. So with that, let's go into an overview of what Fate is. So the Fate role-playing game it's a little bit different than most traditional role-playing games. It's a story game, which is something that a lot of people are very familiar with. But Fate itself it's a toolkit to build the game that you want. Okay, there are other role-playing games out there that are like that, like Cortex, which is just been re-released with a new version, is also a toolkit in that end, and it provides all sorts of ways that you can sculpt a game to give it the feel that you're looking for. For instance, this is one of the reasons why Fate doesn't have a default magic system, because every magic system and every book series that you've read, any like television shows or movies that you've experienced, all have kind of a different sort of system to them. Like, you know, do they depend on minerals? Do they like require Venetian magic? Can like wizards just do things at will? You know, are the wizards high all the time, like Gandalf in Lord of the Rings? Like, you know, not sure. So what we're going to do today in Fate is we're going to talk about what aspects are. Then we're going to talk about what fate points are. And then we're going to talk about skills and stunts. And we're going to talk about all of this as we go through character creation. So there is a link, a Trello board. I'm going to go ahead and just show that for a moment. There is a Trello board where we're going to put our character sheets. I personally am a fan of using Trello for Fate because I like all of the information at my fingertips. Whenever I play in Roll20, the character sheets for Fate are amazing in Roll20. But for a GM, I don't have a view that shows me everybody's aspects and skills at once. And so I personally still prefer Trello, but the reality is that you can play Fate anywhere with any kind of system. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to our presentation here, and I'd like to talk about aspects. Oh, I'm clicking on the wrong window. I've got too many windows open showing the same thing. All right. So aspects in Fate are truths in the fiction. Okay. So what that means is that aspects are always true. So if something has the aspect on fire, it is on fire and like needs to be put out, or, you know, is going to explode if it keeps burning too long. In this regards, for aspects always being true, there's, you know, depends on what kind of aspects you end up writing and uncovering. Like if the tunnel is a shadowy tunnel and it has the aspect shadowy, then that is a truth on the tunnel. Where it gets a little bit iffy with aspects is when you want to try and create an aspect that's a little bit out of scale for power for the game that you're playing. So for instance, if you decided that you want to create the aspect decapitated on the evil king, that's better handled in other ways in Fate, because what you're really trying to do is defeat the evil king. And so doing a like creating that aspect isn't necessarily going to happen. But aspects are where we kind of start filling in the game. They're the interesting things that hook your attention in a story. So when you're watching a TV show, you may have a character who acts one way in one episode and acts another way in another episode, both within their character, but in slightly different ways. If we were playing Fate, they may be representing different aspects that character may have. So that's something to keep in mind with aspects. Now, anything in the game can have an aspect, and there isn't really aspect ownership. Like, there are aspects that are tied to certain things. Like, there are aspects that will be tied to your characters. There are aspects that are tied to situations, to scenes, to locations. And when they make sense, they do have a relationship to those things. But just because you create an aspect doesn't mean that you're the only person who can use it. So for instance, if the tunnel is shadowy, both you and your opponents can invoke that for advantage, because that aspect exists. Now, if you've cast a spell and decided that you've cast a spell so that you have dark vision, and you have an aspect called dark vision, since that's only like related to your character, then you would be the only one who would be able to actually invoke that for advantage. So speaking of invoking, aspects are what are used with fate points to get mechanical advantages. When you invoke it, it's for your benefit. Okay. And whenever it's compelled, it is, I don't want to say to your detriment, because that's not quite the right thing to say, but it complicates your life. So what that means is that if you, like, let's say you cast a spell and got the aspect dark vision, okay, maybe I want to compel you with the dark vision that whenever you come out into the grand hallway, which has torches lit everywhere, maybe you'll be blinded for a moment, which would complicate your life because the grand hall has all of your enemies in it. And so I would offer you a fate point and we would do the compel, which I'll describe what compels are shortly. But basically all aspects can be invoked for your advantage or compelled to complicate your life. When you're compelled, that's how you stock up on fate points. And when you invoke, that's how you spend fate points. So let's talk a little bit more about aspects before we talk a little bit deeper into invoking and compelling aspects. So fate points make you awesome. Okay. Fate points are literally you choosing when to expend your like narrative energy. You're saying that my character wants to make this happen. And because you want to make this happen, you use an aspect and spend a fate point. You spend a fate point and use that aspect to justify it. Okay. So the aspects justify you spending a fate point. Okay. So for instance, if you're on a reconnaissance mission and you still have that dark vision aspect up, you could spend a fate point to add to your roll for you sneaking ahead and trying to gather some information about what's going on ahead in the tunnel. Okay. You can also, in addition to getting, you get a +2 to your roll when you mechanically invoke an aspect like that. Alternatively, you can also use that fate point to re-roll the dice. Okay. So if you don't like the dice result, you can re-roll it. I will tell you that, if you have 3 minuses or 4 minuses, always use it for a re-roll. Statistically, you're going to do better every time. If it's 2 minuses or higher, then you're getting into kind of iffy territory. Like there are some times whenever it's like the only way I'm going to win, like succeed on this roll is to re-roll. But more often than not, sometimes just getting that extra +2 to make that gap between success and failure a little bit smaller is good. So, the opposite of invoking those aspects is being compelled, which I described a little bit. When a compel is offered to you, whenever I say, hey, the dark vision is going to make it really tough for you in the start of this like scene inside where all the torches are, I offer you a fate point. You can then decide to accept or decline that fate point. If you accept that fate point, you accept the complication and we move forward. Now, when you accept a complication, don't try to accept it, but then kind of turn it to your advantage anyway. Like, oh, well, you know, I'm blinded, but kind of trying to like weasel out of a complication, because that's not at the heart of things. The heart is to accept the complication and to basically, the way that I like to phrase it is drive your character like a stolen car. Like, you just like crash it, wreck it, if you've got a complication, lean into it, because honestly, you have less to worry about in Fate because your character isn't going to die, because you have a lot of options to prevent that. And honestly, character death is one of the weakest, least interesting things that you can do as a failure in a game. And I much rather like to make people's lives people's characters' lives more complicated. So now, if for whatever reason you absolutely do not like the compel, you can say no thank you and spend a fate point to decline the compel. So what that means is that you can say no, you have that choice, and you're done. Now, that will also drain your fate points pretty quickly, so be aware that if you're declining your compels and fighting against like the complications in your life, it's going to give you less agency on the things that you actually want to do in the game. So it's kind of a dance a little bit. Now, one thing that some players will do is also hoard fate points. If that's what you choose to do, that's okay. Like, it's your character, you can choose to do that. But just remember, like, hoarding those fate points are meant to be spent. And I like to do a fair number of compels to keep fate points fairly flowing. But that's my particular GMing style. One last thing on, no, that covered everything. All right, let's go on to the next one. I want to talk about writing aspects. So writing aspects is one of the areas where Fate is different than other role-playing games. A lot of other role-playing games will actually give you a list of things that you can be. They'll give you a list of classes, like you could play a druid or a wizard or fighter. And then within each of those, you could be like a battle-hardened fighter. You can be an enchanter wizard. And you have choices that you make, and there are trees of choices to make moving forward. In Fate, you get to actually invent and create wholesale what you want to be and what you want to do. This is, in my opinion, one of the best things about Fate, but it is also one of the most stressful things about Fate, because you have to flip that switch and you have to like write what your character is going to be. That's part of the reason why today I've chosen that we're going to be playing a fantasy-based Fate game. Think in terms of Dungeons and Dragons, so that we have some familiar hooks that we can kind of hang our characters on to make writing aspects a little bit easier. Okay, so the example that I have up here in the presentation right now is Dwarven Fighter. So Dwarven Fighter is an acceptable but bland aspect. It doesn't say much about the character, the world, or anything other than they're a Dwarven fighter. They probably use an axe. They've got a beard and long hair and probably like to drink ale. That's really all it says about them. And so what I want to do is make that aspect a little bit stronger. And one of the things that I've always recommended of my players is to evaluate an aspect with who, what, where, when, and why. Okay, and to ask those questions about an aspect to try and expand on it. And this next slide has some examples. So for instance, we could take Dwarven Fighter and we could ask, who is this Dwarven Fighter? It's like, okay, this is an elder Dwarven fighter of Clan Meadmaker. Okay, so what we've done here is we've established that this dwarf is older, perhaps a little bit wiser, maybe not as fast as they were in their youth. And they are of Clan Meadmaker, which means that we've got like a hook in the world that we can like bring into play. Like suddenly, like anyone who likes Clan Meadmaker, you know, may look positively on the character. Anyone who doesn't like Clan Meadmaker, like the enemies of Clan Meadmaker, may like be the enemies of this person. And this provides interesting hooks for the GM and the group to feed into. So the next thing that we could do is we could take Dwarven Fighter and we could say, what? Okay. And in this instance, Dwarven Defender of the Clan's Ancient Family Gemstone. Now, you may have seen like a lot of aspects that are usually like 3 to 5 words. I personally am fine with longer aspects because you want to get the point across on what they are. And this one's a little bit long, but this guy's a Dwarven Defender of the Clan's Ancient Family Gemstone. Like this, again, gives us another hook to work with. Where? Dwarven Soldier of the Northern Mountain Valley. It's like, okay, so like now that tells the GM, like, now I have to know that there's a place called the Northern Mountain Valley, and I'm not sure, like, why does it need Dwarven soldiers? Like, are there enemies nearby? Like, is it an ancient order? Like, suddenly there are other questions to ask. When? Recently promoted Dwarven Sergeant. So this tells you that you've got, like, a dwarf who's early in their career, maybe only 80 years old for a dwarf, and, you know, somebody who's kind of new to the beat. And so now, like, we've got, again, a little bit of interesting hooks as, like, a lot of people maybe outrank them. Maybe he beat somebody out for sergeant who doesn't like that and now has somebody who's hounding him. And then lastly, how. And we've got accidental wielder of the hammer of Clan Meadmaker. So what this does is this allows us to have a character who maybe stumbled onto, like, you know, a whole like sword in the stone sort of bit where it's like, oh, well, you know, this kid isn't going to pull the sword from the stone. And then suddenly this dwarf managed to pick up the hammer of Clan Meadmaker, and like, why? Like, no one's been able to do it for hundreds of years. This is crazy. This kid isn't worth it. And so that's using who, what, where, when, how allows you to build on aspects that provide hooks for more story details. So, so that's writing aspects. I'm going to stop right here and I'm going to switch over to the Trello board. I want to talk you all through the Trello board so that you understand. You each have a character column. And then what I want to do is I want to start with each of us writing our aspects. Let me go ahead and switch over. So inside of Trello, each of you has your own column. Okay. There is a high concept, a trouble, and a free aspect. My expectation is that you have the high concept and the trouble written for today's game. If you're done before everybody else is done, or you have a strong third idea, please feel free to use the third aspect. Now, a lot of different Fate games will have different flavored aspects. They'll say like, okay, so aspects 1 and 2 are, high concept and trouble. But like maybe there's an aspect that relates to a couple of things in the gaming world, or like the story at hand. But for today's game, it's just going to be a free aspect for you to just work with and workshop with. I have an example character in here, basically high concept of soul knife wielding warrior. Trouble is disrespected by the Meadmaker dwarf clan. And then free aspect is demoralizing stare. So this is somebody who doesn't like to take any gruff from anybody. Okay. And so what I'd like you to do is just to think about what kinds of characters you want to create. And as you have questions, we can talk that out.
Ooh.
So as a reminder, fantasy, D&D sort of oriented.
I've had a
So we're looking
concept.
for heroes.
Yeah.
Well, that's the question. Do you want to be heroes? I mean, my suggestion would be to be heroes, but if you decide that you want to be a bunch of murder hobos, that's fine. Jim, you were saying that you had a concept?
Yeah, when I first read the Fate Core, I was so eager to play it, and I didn't have anybody to play it with. So I tried to get my family to play it. I was going to run run a game, and I could not explain the concept. I taught my little brothers D&D when they were like in elementary school, so that's their mindset. And so I said, you can be whatever you want to be. It's kind of like what you said. It's a fantasy environment. Be whatever you want to be. My brother like, that's dumb. And I was like, but isn't there a book? Don't I have to? No, whatever. Just use your imagination. And then he trying to break the system. He goes, I want to be a dragon billionaire. A dragon who's a billionaire. And I said, well, we can work with that, but it's not going to. We can't. Anyway, point being, But then that fascinated me because I was like, how could we make that work? So not the billionaire part for this, but I was like, what if I was like a ancient silver dragon who has lived multiple lifetimes as an elven mage? Like, so he can't reveal that he's a dragon for some reason. That's probably part of his trouble. And of course,
well, maybe he can reveal that he's a dragon, but then
Well, I had a deal. Why would he choose to live as a humanoid or let's say an elf for, thousands of years? Maybe because in ancient times, his dragon coterie did something, overstepped their bounds, tried to snuff out of, who knows? And he went against it. And he's kind of sided with humanoids since then or something, and maybe his trouble is that the Dragon Council has been looking for him for centuries because he kind of went against, but something like that.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. So your high concept could be ancient elven wizard, and I would want you to do the who, what, where, when, why on like the wizard part, because I think that's worth fleshing out, like a kind of wizard or something. That could be the high concept, and the trouble could be hunted dragon lord, or something along those lines. Hunted silver dragon could be the trouble aspect. And so that you are indeed a silver dragon, but you're in elven form. And that could be your high concept and trouble right there.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I have this idea of like a half-elf scoundrel that made a pact with a demon, and I'm trying to kind of figure out how to turn that into a high concept.
Well, what did the elf make a pact for? Money, power, sex?
Maybe she was about to have that, like the beginning of Skyrim, where you're about to get executed, and she makes a pact to survive.
Okay, so you've got all right, so you've got a half elf scoundrel who makes a deal with, what do you say, a devil?
Yeah.
Okay.
Devil, demon.
Yeah. Let's see. I mean, you can go with half elf scoundrel and then expand on that, and the trouble aspect could be packed with devil name.
Okay.
And because that could, having a pact with, a particular devil might definitely complicate your life. So, it could either be packed with devil or like running on borrowed time.
Yeah.
So something along those lines. So yeah, do the who, what, where, when with the half elven rogue and see like, what does it mean for them to be a rogue?
Yeah.
Where do they come from as a half elf? Well, I see where Jeremy is going with everything. Plague doctor exiled from Hearthkeep for her putrid experiments.
Yeah, I'm being gross.
Hey, there you go. We are going to keep the game like PG-13, but I've got no problem getting a little bit gross. So Plague Doctor exiled from Hearthkeep for her putrid experiments. That sounds pretty good. Trouble, I've made an enemy, literally, in Plague Spore Zombie King. I like that. I've made an enemy, literally.
Yeah, that
Steady
was the
hands.
experiment probably that got it kicked out, I guess.
Well, I mean, that sounds like something that would happen. Steady hands and a sharp knife. I like those. Those are very good aspects, Jeremy.
Cheers.
Let's see. So we've got Tim.
If we have two scoundrels, I've got a second idea going too.
Don't, seriously, you guys are going to be completely different. Don't worry about it. There are no roles, so we don't need to worry about like DPS and healing and all of that. Part of the differentiator too will be skills, but you guys will be different enough that it'll be okay. So Tim, you've got young rogue recently accepted into the Vagabonds Guild. All right. And Trouble hasn't paid his dues yet. Okay, so your trouble aspect is that the Vagabonds Guild is kind of like, what's the word? Kind of.
I kind of meant that in two ways. I'm still inexperienced, and I probably haven't completed the final thing that actually makes me a full member.
Oh, okay. That sounds good. I like that. Let's see. Jim, let's take a look at ancient elven wandering mystic, trouble hidden from his dragon family, the Silver Sanhedrin, for centuries. All right. Mackenzie, let's take a look at yours. Beekeeper secretly protecting a magical, vaguely sentient swarm. Talk with me a little bit about that. You still with us, Mackenzie?
Yeah. Sorry, I think. Hold on.
Okay.
I love that there's a beekeeper.
I do too.
Thank you. I was just trying to think what I wanted to do, and then all that popped in my mind was bees.
Hello, bees.
Oh, classic. So looking at, I mean, that high concept is good. Beekeeper secretly protecting a magical, vaguely sentient swarm. I like that. The trouble aspect, I think, communicating with bees is hard, even for a skilled beekeeper. I don't know that that's kind of broad enough to be a trouble, because it's very specific to kind of dealing with the bees. So, so what is at the heart of that trouble that you're thinking of?
I think that's sort of like, even like the free aspect that I put down underneath. It's sort of, those two are sort of interconnected as to like, am I this person who can control this swarm of bees? Or, I mean, I am supposed to protect this swarm, but yet sort of the idea in my head is I'm also sort of commanding this swarm. So who's in charge? Like, that was sort of the idea, is like, who's really in charge if I'm supposed to protect this swarm, but I'm also sort of sending them out to go like do things for me, if you know what I mean. Like,
yeah. So here's a question that I have for you, Mackenzie. And maybe this is going a little bit more gonzo than what you want, but what if instead of a beekeeper, you were the sentient swarm of bees?
I'll take that.
Okay, that's one of the great things about Fate. Like, you know, as long as we all agree that it kind of fits with the, like, what we're doing in the world, then that's okay. So, like, I think that in this world, I think that having sentient bees, being a high concept, seems pretty straightforward and works well. For whenever you put together campaigns, or even if they're just short ones, you want to have kind of an agreement on how weird things can get. I kind of refer to it as gonzo. Like, what do you want your gonzo level to be? Do you want it to be like a 1 or a 2 where it's mostly like fairly normal? Or do you want your gonzo to be like an 11 where you're playing sentient Tetris blocks? Which one of my GMs was kind enough to let me do that. So I appreciated it. I like to get weird. So now rethink that trouble.
Right now.
So, okay, cool. Let's see. How's everybody else doing? Anybody want to talk through anything that they've got going on?
I have a question about Jim's character.
Yes.
Ancient elven wandering mystic in hiding from his dragon family. Are you a dragon? Your family are dragons?
He's a dragon, but he's been in the form of an elf for hundreds, if not thousands of years.
Are you stuck as an elf, or are you an optional
No,
elf?
it's that he. So the idea is that maybe at some point, an eon ago, the dragons were getting too powerful, and he felt for the plight of the smaller folk and the shorter-lived folk, and he went against his order to try to bring more balance. Maybe like Zuko in the Fire Nation. I don't know if anybody knows that reference, but kind of like, okay, this is out of control. We need to get some more balance in the world, and so he went against his kin, and he's been living as a shorter-lived, which in his mind, that's elves are shorter-lived than he is. But anyway, for the duration, ever since then.
So are you hiding from them because you're hostile to each other, you and your dragon
Because
family?
we're at odds. Our philosophies were at odds. I don't know if they still are, because he's probably not keeping in touch, and it's been probably 1,000 years. But so I'm trying to think of its aspect. It's something about balance, or that's why I kind of went with mystic instead of wizard, because he's kind of more like he wants to optimize the world so that everything can live its best life. whatever that means, I don't know. Like so that humans can live alongside dragons, let's say.
That's really cool.
Give everybody room. Everybody should have
love it.
room. Maybe it's naive, but it's
naive, but it's sweet. It's heartfelt.
Indeed.
So now I'm trying to figure out what his aspect would be.
And it doesn't have to relate to anything that's going on. Like maybe
that's true. It could be something.
Yeah,
different.
maybe he just really likes playing the trombone. I mean,
okay,
that's not really a good aspect, but
maybe I'll say he also is a martial arts master, because he finds that's a way for him to part of his meditation and his. So something like that, maybe.
Oh, you could do Tai Chi master.
That works.
That would be very, very calming and good. All right. So, last call. Is everyone done writing aspects?
Yep.
I am now.
Okay. All right. Is everyone satisfied with their aspects that they've written? All right.
I'm
Great.
thinking of. I'm still thinking of my aspect. I might want to go with your who, what, where, when, and maybe make it like he's a guru of the something order. Like to give flesh something. Put some hooks out there to hang something.
One thing that you can do is, so now that everybody is starting to write these aspects, you can start to, like, if you want to tie that Tai Chi master, no pun intended, into something else, you can definitely do that. Like you could be like, Tai Chi master from Hearthkeep, because we've established that there's a place called Hearthkeep. So, or you could be a Tai Chi master of the honeybees. Something more clever than that, but tie it into like why there might be sentient honeybees. But well, I guess you didn't say honeybees, so I'm conflating bees with honeybees.
It could
No,
be,
I've conflated bees with honey. It's tied in my trouble. So
oh, honey has magical properties. Yeah.
Ooh. All right, great. So let's go ahead and move on then to the next phase of character creation. Let's do skills. Okay. So in the slideshow, there's a slide for skills. You get 1 great skill, which is at +4, 2 at +3, 3 at +2, and 4 at +1. I can tell you that the most important thing for you to pick are your top 3 skills. So the 4 and the 3 and the 3, those are the ones that are going to probably end up being like used by you the most. If you want to like reserve the other skills, like the fair and the average skills for during play and assign them during play, that is perfectly fine. I'm just going to ask that you have the great and the good skills chosen, because that helps define what kind of challenges your character is going to address. Now, if you look at the sample PC that I have in there and open up the skills card, there is a list of the skills that we're using today. These are the skills from Fate Core. One thing to point out is that a lot of Fate products will play with the skill list. That is on purpose, and that is desirable because we want the skill list to reflect the game that we're doing. And so some games will have a shorter list. Some games will have specific skills that you can only get if you have certain aspects to unlock them. For instance, like a magic skill. For today, we're just going to use these skills. And then if anyone is using magic, like perhaps a silver dragon mystic, then we're going to incorporate them into our skills. Like shooting a fireball is definitely the shoot skill for today. And trying to charm someone is definitely like rapport. So with those things in mind, you can choose your skills. I've also repeated the number of skills that you get for each of them, and a link to the default skill list in case you wanted to read up on any of those. There are some custom fields. Unfortunately, the custom fields are kind of short. So when you get to the +2 and +1 skills, it's kind of hard to see them. I can't do anything about fixing that. I'm sorry, but using these custom fields allows me to have them display on the front of the card, which lets everybody at a glance see what the skills are. So go ahead and choose your skills for your character. And if you have any questions, let me know.
There are some one-off skills like physique and will that have something to do with your stress tracks. Are we
We're
doing
not
that
going to
today?
be. We're not going to be doing that today.
Okay, cool.
So
Keeps it simple.
yeah, I'm trying to I want to focus our energies on the important things to learn in Fate, and like stuff like that is like you can read it and apply it.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a question about the craft skill. Is this the appropriate skill if I wanted to have, say, a vial of noxious gas, to open and make a kind of choking cloud situation,
Yes,
or for taking samples of like funny mushrooms or this kind of thing?
I think that would be a perfect skill for that.
Grand, thank you.
So one thing that I'll say as you guys, as you folks choose your skills, there are various ways that skills can be used. I know that in Fate Core, like some of them are marked as this is an attack skill, this is a defend skill. The reality is whether or not a skill is an attack skill or a defend skill or overcome or create advantage, often it varies by game and by circumstance. I know that some of the games that I've run, for instance, I ran a medieval low magic, high fantasy game where we didn't have any kind of like medicine skill. And so we had to chat about how far lore would allow like battlefield patch-ups, and whether or not we needed to create a medicine skill specifically to apply to that. And whether or not a certain skill could be used to attack in certain situations. One of the strengths of Fate, in my opinion, is that it promotes discussion amongst the group as opposed to having a top-down model. So what that means is if we think that, it's like, well, can you attack with stealth? Or does it require a stunt to do that? Because you would think that like the rogue is going to attack with stealth, but it seems like that's something that needs to be defined. And in this instance, I'm going to say that it needs a stunt to attack with stealth because it's not typical. But in different games, that might be just a base assumption of the stealth skill.
Difference between empathy and rapport.
Sure. So rapport is creating a bond with someone. It's chatting to them and kind of like making them feel like listened to and creating a bond between them. You know, you like chat somebody up and you end up like hanging out for a little bit. Whereas empathy is really about figuring out the emotional state of the other. So, in talking to them, you're trying to figure out, sort of like a therapist, are they telling me everything that they need to tell me in order to like get this off their chest? If you're a member of the FBI, like, are they lying to me? Are they withholding information? So that's kind of the difference between rapport and empathy.
Got it. Perfect. It's funny. I'm observing my own thoughts of my mind is wanting to min-max. Like, what is going to be, which doesn't really apply, I don't think, to this.
Yeah, it's
like, what skill would I use more?
Well, I can say that here at 6:30, when we're done with character creation, we're going to take probably a 10-minute break just to take care of bios and give me a short moment to look at everybody's characters and to create an opening scenario for us. So, yeah. So what I'm going to do, my thoughts as a GM, whenever I look at these character sheets, is to think like, okay, how can I bring a lot of these aspects together? How are ways that I can bring some of the skills that you want to use into play, and to try and make sure that the scenes that I put together fit those sorts of things. So that's one of the other things that I really enjoy about the Fate system, is that you're literally writing down for me, the GM, what you want to see in the game. You're saying, this is what my character does. I want to do more of it. This is what my character's problem is. Make my life difficult. And that's nice. Okay, so I'm not surprised that the sentient bees have an apex skill of provoke.
Trying to figure out what I was trying to figure out. Like, no, it's that top is provoke.
Definitely. Plague Doctor, crafts. Yeah, that makes sense. Young rogue, burglary. Nice. The half-elf scoundrel, athletics. Cool. Ooh, with contacts at a +3. I love contacts. That's one of my favorite skills. And the mystic, empathy. Rapport, contacts. Okay, cool.
Yeah, he's been a kind of a diplomat trying to get races to get along. It's kind of his ideal of a world in harmony and in balance that kind of goes around trying to smooth out problems between peoples, keep the peace.
Excellent.
And I like that despite that Jim and I both have the same +3s, I can definitely already see them going in very different directions with the same skills.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, look at we do. Huh.
Yeah, that's why I never worry about
cool.
like duplication of like character concepts in Fate, because we're going to spin it in different ways as play happens. Is everyone good on skills? Anyone still working?
I'm missing. Go ahead.
Oh, I have my 3, I think, and I'm just filling in the lower ones now.
Okay.
Yeah, I
I'd
just
like
don't have
to-
the +1s.
Okay. I'm going to
fine.
go ahead and I want to talk about stunts. So I'm going to switch over to the presentation and talk about stunts. So stunts in Fate are they're kind of like little abilities that your character has. They're circumstantial abilities that your character has. If you're used to playing like D&D 3.5 or Pathfinder, they're kind of analogous to feats. Where like, you know, in certain circumstances you get certain bonuses or certain things that you can do. They're not analogous to feats in D&D 5th edition because 5th edition feats are much broader and grander. But stunts allow you to have get a mechanical bonus to what you're doing. Okay, at its simplest level. So there are what I have on the screen right now is kind of the default kind of setup for stunts, which is because I am amazing or have this cool piece of gear, I get a +2 when I use a skill to overcome, create advantage, attack, or defend, which are the different actions that you can take when described circumstance. Okay, so for instance, you know, because I am sentient bees, I get a +2 when I use provoke to oh goodness, what is it? To defend when what's that? Yeah, to defend when the hive is in danger. It's like, okay, that's good. So that's the basic kind of model of a stunt. There are other ways to run stunts. I'm not going to go into that today because those extra ones really, they allow you to break the rules. So for instance, you have a stunt that says, you know, because I am a rogue, I can use stealth to attack when I have the aspect hidden on me. So what that means is that if you create the advantage hidden, so like you're hiding, which is what a rogue usually does, then you can use stealth to attack instead of using shoot or fight. So that's kind of like breaking the rules. There are also other ways to model stunts where like you can spend a fate point to get a super powerful thing. You could have a once a session power that allows you to do a thing. I don't want to go into that right now because I'd like to get into playing the game. And stunts are one of those things that you can kind of expand on later. So, and also if you download a lot of the Worlds of Adventure or look through any of the Fate books, there are lots of examples of stunts that you can steal and use. So for instance, if you're having trouble right now coming up with a stunt for your character, look at your top 3 skills and go to the skill list on the Fate SRD and look at the example stunts that are there. Maybe one of them is just one that you want to lift and use. Everyone's going to get one stunt for today. If you want to create a second one, you can create a second one. I just want to make sure that we're able to stay on time and on track today. Oh, I've come back and I see Jim has found some artwork for his character. I've been watching a lot of Harry Potter lately, so that looks very Slytherin to me.
It does, yeah.
That's
Harry Potter's back in the cinemas around here.
Oh, good.
They're showing some old films because there's no new ones coming out.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
My favorite cinema chain went out of business this week. Regal. Bummer. Strange times.
yeah.
Okay.
How do I?
I think I have the
That's
skills
not-
I want
oh.
for now.
Does anyone need help with writing stunts?
I was just
Just
trying to
not
figure out
there
how to get
yet.
into Trello.
I've got a
Yeah,
quick
it's going to
question
go
about the
into
setting. Sorry.
it's going to go
I was
into the
also-
title of the card.
Putting it in the wrong person's stuff anyway.
Oh, well, there's that.
I have a quick question about the setting.
Certainly.
If it's a D&D kitchen sink kind of thing, then are top hats okay?
Yes, top hat would be fine.
I was terrified I was going to be pushing my luck. I'm relieved.
Yes. Yes. I mean, how can I say yes to sentient bees and no to a top hat?
Basically.
Well, now I'm thinking of bees all wearing tiny top hats. That's what you put in my head now.
Well, how do sentient bees wear top hats? Is it one top hat over the cluster? Is it like top hats on all the individual bees?
The polite thing would be to use the top hat to cover the stinger when they're in civilized company.
Yes, but none of you are civilized company, so I wouldn't expect it.
That is
No.
true. That's
Especially the
absolutely true.
sentient swarm of bees.
Although I did notice that Swarm of Bees has stealth at a +2, and I'm wondering how a swarm of bees can be stealthy. I guess they stop
Dispersing.
flying and they crawl everywhere.
And dispersing.
Dispersing.
And I thought about, like, I had it higher, and I was like, oh, wait, swarm, buzzing, that's noticeable. So that's why I dropped it down to +2. It's like some stealth, but not amazing.
If they disperse too far, do they lose their sentience and become normal bees?
Oh, that's a good question. Like, I don't think so.
It's not an important question, but it's just what came into my head.
Yeah.
And they form like a second swarm of intelligent bees then?
Make a queen then.
I want a stunt that lets me use empathy in hand-to-hand combat, kind of like how in Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes could anticipate what his opponent was going to do because he could read them.
Yeah.
But it seems too powerful. I don't know how to word it. I don't want it because otherwise it's just might as well make +4 to fight, but I don't want it.
Yeah. So here's my thoughts on that. So I'm not the kind of person that says no, but I want to think about the fiction a little bit, and using empathy to attack or using empathy to defend.
Defend would be better.
Using Yes. Now, using empathy as like, you can use empathy to defend against hand-to-hand combat attacks. That would be an awesome stunt.
I like it. That's what I want.
Okay.
Because perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Because Trello
remember,
give you...
go
Sorry,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, go ahead, Tim.
I was just asking if Trello gives you a way to get a carriage return in there.
No. It's one of the drawbacks.
I was trying to think of like how I wanted to use the honey in my stunt. Because why have magical honey if you're not going to use it in some capacity?
Okay. Now, what would the magical honey do? Like, does it stick people in place? Is it psychotropic?
Yeah, I'm not sure entirely. And the fact that it's like, because of the magical properties and because it is pursued, I almost wonder, like, part of me is thinking, use it to give me +2 in resources when I don't normally, because that is like the one thing I can offer, like that I can offer to others. Like, you want some magical honey? We have the magical honey that everyone loves.
Well, one of what you could do is your stunt could be, I don't mean to stop right on B.
No.
What we could do is, call it magical honey. And when someone else uses it to create advantage with magic, they get an extra free invoke on that aspect they created. So that doesn't help you explicitly, but that does help like the group. And uses the honey for that. Now, alternatively, like, I don't know if you were anticipating your bees actually doing magic.
I was thinking about it. I definitely was thinking about like being able to do like a bit of like low level magic, and that's sort of that was one of the concepts I considered for like using the honey for was the honey sort of allows like the use of magic to some degree.
Well, it could be +2 when like creating an advantage, which is creating an aspect, using What kind of magic do you think that the sentient swarm of bees was going to use? Like hypnosis or stingers or something else?
Either something with the stingers or like part of me is thinking like basically like sort of an equivalent to like cantrip type stuff, like mage hand or like prestidigitation.
Well, we can just off the bat assume that you can use shoot to like fire stingers at people. I think that's fair, a fair assumption, based on your high concept of sentient swarm of bees.
Okay, I can add that as a skill. I will add that as a skill. Because I can make magical honey. I get +2. I like that idea of offering it to others. Or the resources gain. Which I might go for the resources gain.
Okay, so you're going to swap around some skills and maybe +2 when you use resources to create an advantage?
Because I get +2 when using the honey. That sentence confused me. I'm sorry.
No worries. Okay, tell me what you wanted to do.
Basically, like when I offer the honey to people, that gets me +2 in resources.
Okay. We need to associate it with an action type, like attack,
Right.
defend, create advantage, or overcome. So the
Right.
question is do you want to like grease people's palms with honey to like overcome problems, or do you want to use the honey to find solutions and create advantages?
No, I like the greasing people's palms.
Okay, so that would be +2 to the overcome action with resources because of the magical honey.
+2 to resources to over. Okay, so when I set that to +2 when I use resources to overcome when I use the honey. Okay, cool. +2.
Excellent. All right, so let's. I see Jeremy has renamed his character. Thank you, Jeremy. Agatha the Blue. So tell me about your stunt, Jeremy.
Yes, I was actually going to ask if it was a little too broad for you, but I'll read it out for everyone. Snap diagnosis. Because I've studied sickness and injury all my life, I get a +2 when using notice to create an advantage when assessing another being's physical condition. So this is the kind of thing of spotting when someone's got a bum leg or a bad case of the warts, or there's something about them I can tell from how they're moving or how they're speaking. I can see what's in good condition and what's in bad condition about them.
Yeah, no, I think that that's great. I think that one limit that I'll place on that is that it's going to be kind of like basically things that are roughly human and sapient. So like if you encounter like
being with another humanoid.
Yeah. So like if you encounter a bugbear, cool. If you encounter an elf, cool. If you encounter a carrion crawler, no, not going to work.
Gotcha.
Unless suddenly you are a veterinarian, plague veterinarian exiled from Hearthkeep.
Well, I might see if I can invoke the high concept for a general passing familiarity with all things creepy and disgusting.
Yes.
But it's not a specific enough expertise for a stunt, I think.
Sounds good. All right, Tim, talk me through your stunt.
Well, I just basically took the one you put before. I put another one in there, but I thought, oh, you know what? I think I can use that with my free aspect, so I deleted it.
Okay, good. Yeah, being able to attack from stealth is one of the things all of my roguish, stealthy Fate characters do, because it's fun. I mean, deadly. All right. Lily Shades and Isaac Nordrum, please put in parentheses your name so I know which character is associated with whom. But Lily Shades, tell me about your stunt.
So I modified it a little bit just now from the Fate SRD. It's hardcore parkour. Well, it should probably be renamed now, but +2 to overcome actions with athletics if you're in a chase across narrow alleyways or similarly precarious environments. So sort of if imagining if like a guard is chasing me, being able to like find those pathways and just um, escape them a little bit easier.
Sure. I tell you what, one thing that I'm going to say is just for today, if you could
Yeah.
eliminate everything from across narrow alleyways and beyond,
Yes.
I want to open up the scope of that a little bit. So that would be +2
Yeah.
to overcome actions with athletics if you were in a chase.
was trying
Make it
to-
chase or tight quarters.
Okay.
Okay, I want it to definitely come up, and now I'm looking at them to make sure that they're all definitely going to come up. Well, or at least odds are they will come up.
Yeah.
So,
Originally it was across like rooftops, and I'm like, that might not really come up in a fantasy.
all right, cool. All right, I want to go over a couple of things on the character sheets. And then we are going to break for 10 minutes so that I can kind of get my ducks in a row and we can kick off some play. So underneath the stunts, there is a card mark stress. Okay, that card mark stress has 6 checkboxes in it. This is how we're going to handle stress and fate, which I guess I should kind of back up and talk about that. When you take stress and fate, because everything is an opposed roll, when you take stress, you have a choice, or you have to absorb the stress to stay in the scene. If you're unable to absorb the stress, you are taken out of the scene. The opponent who takes you out of the scene dictates how you get taken out of the scene. Okay, so if you're getting attacked by a carrion crawler who wants to eat you and you are taken out of the scene, you are probably going to die. If some bandits are attacking you, you are probably going to be knocked unconscious and you're not going to have any more stuff. So it varies by who the opponent is when you get taken out. The way that you absorb stress is you have these 6 checkboxes that you can mark. Now, this using 6 checkboxes is pulled from Fate Condensed. It's a lot simpler and easier to manage than Fate Core's escalating boxes, which is 1 point, 2 points, 3 points. And they absorb that number of points and you can check only 1 box and 1 condition. We're doing things a little bit of a friendlier way, and a way that I think is kind of the way that you should kind of do it from the get-go. So you get 6 points of stress here that you can mark off. Okay. So if you get hit with 4-point stress hit, you can mark 4 boxes if you want to. Now, one thing to remember, so let's go look at the other cards that are underneath there. There's mild, moderate, and severe. So mild is worth 2 stress, moderate is worth 4 stress, and severe is worth 6 stress. Okay. And they absorb stress, but as a result, you get an aspect that reflects what caused you the stress. So for instance, if that carrion crawler is chewing on you and you take a moderate moderate consequence, which is what those are, then you are going to get eaten up leg. Like you'll still have a leg, but you're going to be all chewed on. Yeah. Or like gut wound or something like that. The opponent who creates the aspect gets a free invoke on it. So that means that carrion crawler is going to get a free invoke on you the next time that they attack if they'd like to use it. And it can also be compelled against you. Usually it's a good idea to kind of lean into those to get some compel sometimes, which is good. Or at least it gets you fate points. So you're going to want to balance those 6 stress boxes and mild, moderate, and severe consequences. As we go through the game, I'll talk about what it takes to relieve those consequences. But know that for today's game, if you take a moderate or a severe consequence, it's going to stay for the entire game. Mild will stay for at least a scene as long as you take care of it quickly, but the remainder of them will stick for the rest of the session today. But as I said earlier, I remind you to play your characters like stolen cars and have fun with it. Don't treat them precious. Any questions about that?
Nope.
Yeah. Could you just
Yes.
remind me, what's the skill we use for helping consequences recover?
It varies by what the consequence is. So, for instance, if someone had their leg gnawed on by a carrion crawler, I would say that lore, because medicine would kind of fall under lore, would be bandaging them up. If you take a moderate consequence, which is like, intense depression, because you were like socially attacked and your mother guilt tripped you for not calling her in a while, then that would require like someone using empathy to kind of like, like it's okay, you'll be all right. Like just call her more regularly, to help get past that. So it varies by what the type is. The difficulty, it's listed. Oh goodness, it's on the Fate SRD, so I'll have to look it up whenever it comes up. But I think it's 2, 4, 6 to overcome in order to start healing or like working towards repairing those. Because when you do actually do an overcome, turning that like knot on leg, and you make a lore and it's successful, you actually do rename the consequence to something a little bit more reflective of it healing. It's still there, which means that you don't have access to that slot. And it's still not the best thing to have, but it's not going to be nearly as bad. Like bleeding gut wound will turn into like, wrapped chest or something like that. So excellent question there, Jeremy. All right, let us take we're going to take a 13-minute break. We'll meet back at 6:50 p.m. Eastern. So that's in 13 minutes from now. And we will kick off the game.
Great.
All right. And we are back. Yay. All right. So let's get back to the game. So one question that Jeremy had while we were on a break, and I was figuring everything out, is are we doing declare a story detail? So what this means is that when you spend a fate point, you can use a fate point to declare a story detail. So for instance, maybe you know a back way into the castle. Maybe you have a piece of gear that's particularly useful for the situation at hand. And that was something that I wasn't intending on using tonight, but it was an excellent question by Jeremy. And if any of you players would like to use that tonight, you can feel free to do so. So that would be groovy. So let's see. Let me just go to the Trello board here. I want to delete a couple of things that I've decided not to use. All right. So, let's see. We have some time. Let's go. All right. So, you have all been collected up individually. You don't know each other, or maybe you do, but not as part of this introduction. You have been gathered to a beautiful elven-style cathedral that sits inside of this city. It has large stained glass windows. It has lots of flowers and even some trees growing inside of it through, and then like as if the building was kind of like constructed around the park that's inside. You have met inside this kind of shaded park inside of this cathedral, this elven cathedral, where before you stands a very regal, elvish-looking person, and this person is going to introduce themselves as, who wants to give this elf person a name? You can just shout out whatever you're thinking.
Gilligan.
All right, there we go. Gilligan. And this elf says, "Hello, I am Gilligan, of the Order of..." Somebody give me an order of.
The White Hart.
Very nice. I am Gilligan of the Order of the White Hart, and I have gathered all of you together today because I have an urgent need of the various abilities that you have. I know that all of you may not know each other. In fact, I don't believe that you do. If you do, that's all the more better. But I am afraid that something unfortunate and untoward has happened. With the recent rise of the zombie king from Hearth Keep, I'm afraid that a lot of the treasures that have been buried and kind of gone undiscovered for a long time have begun to become unburied. The zombie king has decided to seek out ancient magics to make themselves more powerful. And so I believe that that each of you can help us stop this their most current plot. So Agatha the Blue, you were chosen because of your knowledge of plague monsters and zombies of this nature. And let's see, Aldrina, you were chosen for this because of your the outstanding magical properties of the honey that you produce. And Isaac Nordstrom, you and Lily Shades come highly recommended among certain circles that I will not admit to knowing much about, but you've come highly recommended. As have you, Randranath Peacebringer. It is a pleasure to be able to work with you again. We have, like I said, an urgent need as the Zombie King has decided that they are going to unearth a lot of these treasures. What I need you to do for me, and you will be paid handsomely in either favors or gold, as which is your desire. I need you to recover the Sword of the Exalted Fae before the Zombie King gets it.
Sword
Are
of
any
the
of
Exalted
you-
Fae.
Yes, the Sword of the Exalted Fae before the Zombie King gets it. Are any of you disinclined to help?
It will be my honor to assist.
What's it pay?
It pays handsomely if you're able to get the sword before the Zombie King does. And she mentions an amount that is a very high amount. So something that makes it worth an individual's while.
Our priority is protection of the hive and the queen.
I thought
Yes,
Aldrina was standing behind the bees. Was the bee speaking just now? Who else heard
We
this?
are Aldrinas. Aldrina is the queen, and we are Aldrinas.
Aldrinas?
Yes.
Would it bother you if I put a couple of you in a bottle to study for later?
Yes. It would bother us.
I might do it anyway.
At your own peril.
I'm just gonna. Not okay.
Hey,
Okay. I'm just gonna get a little bottle ready and flash an innocent smile.
I'm mentally calculating how much I'm going to have to pay in commissions on this one. Okay.
Okay,
Excellent.
the bees are a little weird, but this sounds exciting. I'm in.
Yes, well, the world is wild and crazy. We've got a zombie king coming to try and unearth ancient artifacts. I figured that I would pull together some of the creatures that would be impacted by the zombie kings unearthing these magical treasures. So yes, you get to be introduced to Aldrina and her hive. Is it her hive? Their hive.
Her hive, because
Their
Aldrina.
hive.
Perfect.
Excellent. All right.
I guess, yeah,
So,
the swarm's hive, yeah.
excellent. So the sword of the exalted Fae, it is in the Firefly Forest, north of the Valley of Alligators. So I'm going to have to ask that you depart at once, not even waiting for sunrise tomorrow, because the Zombie King the Zombie King's forces are on the march.
Well, let us be off then.
A quick question, Gilligan, if I may.
Yes.
What do you know of the Zombie King's forces?
Unfortunately, not much. I do know that the Zombie King has a lot of undead and oozes amongst his forces.
Oh, geez.
So it is my opinion that if it is a disgusting monstrosity or somehow antithetical to life, the Zombie King probably has it within his army. So I would not be surprised to encounter oozes or undead of all varieties. Zombies, strange other like creatures, undead.
So
As
he's
far
been
as I
busy then.
yes, unfortunately they have. So
We do not understand why you have pulled us into this elf, but this hall is filled with plants. If we must do this task, we only wish for sanctuary here.
and that can absolutely be your payment, Aldrina. As we said, we are willing to pay in gold or favors. So it is in our best interest that we keep the magic of the world as alive and thriving as it can be, much to the detriment of the Zombie King, who wants nothing more than to eliminate life
Can I be clear that it's
Go ahead.
just the sword you're after, and any independent commissions that may be found there are ours to do with as we wish?
For the most part, if you encounter anything that is of historical relevance or too powerful, we will lay claim to it. But for the most part, if you find, treasure, it's yours. We reserve the right of, if you need to have it put in contract details, we reserve first claim to everything, but we will not exert that claim unless it is a potent item or something of historical value. Is that agreeable, Isaac?
Yes, everything declared will be subject to first refusal.
Excellent. Much appreciated.
Should we perhaps prepare by procuring some supplies? Do we need chemicals to counteract acids? But we might be dealing with these oozes or some such poultices, healing salves.
So I will allow the group to make one create an aspect roll to create some kind of benefit to reflect your gathering of supplies, because you have to be off fairly quickly. So one of you can choose to roll, I don't know what kind of supplies you'd like to get. So let's talk it through and we can talk about what that roll would be. Because you could definitely get agents to, neutralize acids from the oozes. You could get, holy water to try and go against the zombies. You could get other things that you'd want, so that everyone here understands you have anything that would be reasonable for your character to have already. So, it would be fairly reasonable for an ancient elven wandering mystic, to have money on them, as well as maybe a staff and a crossbow, or spell components. It would be I imagine Agatha the Blue has a medical bag full of lots of fun component things, because craft is her highest skill. Things along that line. So what would you guys like to get supply-wise before you head out?
Healing poultice.
Yeah, healing
Yep.
materials.
And we're dealing with zombies. Does anybody know the best way to dispatch a zombie other than chopping its head off?
Well, there's no cure when you're that far gone. It's really a case of damage control.
Holy water.
We
can
can find a
turn
zombies
undead.
101 book.
You could use turn undead. You could turn undead with maybe holy water and a prayer, but that's only temporary. That's not
How does one prevent from becoming a zombie themselves? Does anybody know?
Prevention is the best cure. Stay away from those that are already zombies.
Got it. Can do.
Excellent. So you want healing poultices. It sounds to me, that sounds like a resources roll to go ahead and buy some healing poultices, which will actually be an aspect called healing poultices, which, as long as you succeed on the create advantage, you'll get that. So I'm setting the difficulty for this at 2, because it should be very easy for you to find and not terribly difficult. Who wants to make the roll for this, the resources roll?
well, who has resources?
Not me.
The bee.
Bees have
Adrena's
resources.
does.
Each bee is carrying 1 coin.
Yeah.
No, we have.
Could I use contacts? No, that's different.
Yeah, that is different.
I was wondering about using crafts to get some leaves and some herbs from this garden inside the cathedral where we are. Maybe brew something up with those.
That sounds, and specifically since
Yeah.
you're a plague doctor, that seems
Right.
well within your bailiwick.
I am more than happy to go that route. So you can roll crafts. I'm going to set the difficulty at 2. I'm going to keep it at 2. So go ahead and make a crafts roll.
Okay, rolling now. The outcome is a 5.
All right. So the difficulty was 2, and you got a 5. In Fate, whenever you make a roll and you succeed 3 or more points higher than your target, that is called success with style. So because this is a create advantage roll, that means that you get an extra free invoke on that aspect, which is healing poultices. So on the Trello board, I'm going to change example aspect to healing poultices, which I may be misspelling, but that's
Poultice.
Okay. All right. Let's see. I need to add a checkbox to this. Sorry, what's that?
Add an O.
Oh, I'm in the process of that right now. I'm editing the card. So I'm adding a checklist to it. 1 there. Okay. So now on the board is under scene aspects are healing poultices. I'm assuming that anyone will be able to use these whenever they need to be used. If you spend a fate point against it, then that's perfectly fine. If you decide to use the free invoke or both free invokes, check off the check boxes. So when all of the check boxes are used, the healing poultices in this instance will be gone. That is not always true of aspects that are created. You can create an aspect, burn through the free invokes, and the aspect still be there. But in this instance, because this represents a limited supply, when you're done using the free invokes, this particular aspect will go away. So, well done. You've gathered some supplies, and you are headed. You're headed north of the city where you are right now. You're traveling overland, and you need to travel your way north through the Valley of Alligators before you arrive at the Firefly Forest. So the Valley of Alligators is so named because it's not so much a valley as it is a swamp. Movement through here is kind of a little bit slow. You're trying to find like batches of land to stay on. Otherwise, you're kind of like working your way through the swamp itself. And there are lots of alligators. There are also like dangerous mosquitoes, and perhaps an assassin vine or two that are in this area. And so what we're going to do right now is we're going to do a challenge to get through the Valley of the Alligators. Okay. In Fate, one of the types of scenes that you can have is a challenge. Okay. And what a challenge is it's kind of like a montage. It's where everyone's going to contribute to the scene to try and get a success. So basically what I'm going to be asking of you is narrate how your character is contributing, getting through this dark, dank swamp filled with alligators and assassin vines, and nasty mosquitoes. And then based on the successes that you get, will determine like how the fiction in the game goes. So the way that this plays out is that one of you will say like, hey, might as well handle mine first. Here's my idea. I will set a difficulty for an overcome roll, and then you roll that skill against that overcome difficulty.
Okay. I've got an idea right off the bat.
All right, great. Isaac, tell me all about it.
I reach down into the swamp and I start pulling up clumps of mud and I start spreading it on my skin. I said, this will mask you and make you look like the background and should keep you from being attacked by the mosquitoes and maybe other things as well. And I'm going to invoke stealth.
Well, you don't invoke until you actually need it. Okay, but well, it's good to keep that in mind that like you have some options whenever you make this roll. So, so somebody's watched Predator, which is good. So Isaac, that to me, it sounds like the stealth skill because you're helping people with the mud to hide away from animals and stuff. in a different game, there would have been a survival skill, and it would have been that survival skill, but we don't have that on our list today. So stealth works great. The difficulty for this, I'm going to set the difficulty at a 3. Because you have to get everybody covered with mud, and they may be disinclined to be covered with mud, and like you're still walking through the swamp. But go ahead and make your roll.
Who is carrying the hive is what I want to know.
Well, here's the question. Do you have to have the hive near you, or can you be independent and come back to the hive after you do your thing?
There's some, I'd say, limited independence. Like there's some degree of wanting to have it nearby, but that's part of why like I made it a ball that can move around.
Okay.
But
Rondranoth would be happy to carry it on his back. If he'll say, Aldranoth, I'd be happy to transport you if you wish. Can I just maybe we contrive a sling that he can?
Yeah.
Well, but you got to that chapel or that cathedral somehow. So how did that happen? If you're in a hive.
The hive was picked up.
Okay.
All right. So because of that circumstance, just because it's something that we want to note in the story, I've created an aspect called carrying the hive, and I've written Peacebringers.
Yeah, Peacebringer. Hey, that's great.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't do really well with pronouncing things. Carrying the hive is an aspect. It has no free invokes on it, but it's there to represent that you're carrying it just in case that might be a complicating or helpful factor. So Tim, coming back to you, I see that you've rolled in Discord and you've gotten yourself, what's your result there?
I got a great +4 result.
Excellent. And I set the difficulty at that for a 3. So that means that you succeeded. You did not succeed with style, but you succeeded, which means that covering everyone with mud does indeed help keep the mosquitoes at bay. So yes, everyone gets a nice warm mud treatment that keeps the mosquitoes at bay.
Very good for the pores.
Yes.
Soothing.
Yes. Who would like to go next to contribute getting through the Valley of the Alligators?
I was thinking that basically send out a scouting party, since as a swarm I have the capacity to send out a portion of me as a scouting party.
That sounds good. That sounds all right. So you're sending out a scouting party to make sure that like if there are any clusters of alligators ahead, you kind of go around them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Checking for some further up ahead dangers that we can sort of plan for.
Okay, that sounds like notice to me. It's a special kind of notice. Like that's not a way that anyone else in the group could use notice. I mean, technically they could by venturing forward, but you're doing it with less risk than they are.
Right.
But that does thin out your hive a little bit, or your like group. And so I'm going to oh goodness. I'm going to set the difficulty for this one at, I'll say, a 3.
Okay.
So go ahead and give that a roll. And what was your result?
Average +1.
All right. So now you are too shy from succeeding, and you have some options. With an overcome roll, you can always choose to succeed. So even though you failed, you can choose to succeed at a cost. Or because with you being 2 away, if you spend a fate point, you'll tie, which means success at a minor cost when you tie on an overcome. Or you can spend 2 fate points and definitely succeed. Or you could just choose to fail. Those are the 4 options that you have.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Is there any chance of assisting with this roll?
With challenges, I don't usually permit assists because it's kind of, we're like montaging around for this.
Sure. Cool.
So, because your assist is your part of the challenge.
Can we spend a fate point if we use it in story for him?
Yes, you can use your fate points if you want to spend for his benefit.
I'm willing to spend one if Mackenzie is.
Sure, I'll take that. I was
Okay,
gonna roll the overcome,
okay.
but if we're both
I'll just use it in story that I'm like, I think that way has the best chance because it looks like there's more solid land. And
What are the ramifications of a failure?
Well, that's a good question to ask. Like, what would the success at a cost be? I can tell you what that cost would be, and then you can decide whether or not you want to continue piling on. So here's one thing about Fate is that Fate isn't about hidden information. Like, I don't like surprises. It's not like, hey, listen, if you fail, there's a cost, but you don't know what the cost is. You as a player really can't understand what that means. But this is about like us player to player, and I'll explain what success at a cost is, and you can choose whether or not you will choose for your character. It's a little bit meta. So success at a cost here, you're trying to bypass the alligators. What would a good cost for this be? So you're sending out bees out to kind of see what's going on up ahead. I'm going to say that this is going to cost you time. And your bees are going to say like, hey, this is the most open way, but the most open way is also going to be the long way. And so by like lowering your risk for safety, it's going to take you longer to get to the firefly forest, to get through this valley of the alligators. So that's going to be the cost, is time. So the question is whether or not you want to accept that.
I like that as I'm okay with that as a cost.
Okay, great. Then you do succeed. You manage to take the slow, lower risk path through the swamps. Who would like to contribute to the challenge next?
I would like to. Peacebringer has been all about relationships, and he's widely traveled. He would like to contact the Mud Dragons tribe, which is a tribe of lizardmen in this swamp that he's dealt with in the past. It might have been quite a while ago, but for some maybe a guide to help them, just to help them get through the swamp.
Okay, that sounds like a good plan. That sounds like contacts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm going to set the difficulty for this at a 4, because you're kind of almost getting like a cheat code through the swamp, making it a little bit more difficult. But and also you have to kind of go out of your way and find them, while not burning too terribly much more time, because you're already on the slow path. So go ahead and roll contacts and tell me what you get.
He got a fair result, and a -1 on the die plus 3 is 2.
All right. So that is success at a cost. You can spend a fate point to tie and get a minor cost, or you can spend a fate point or spend 2 fate points to succeed outright.
I think he will. He'll spend a fate point and get a minor cost. I mean, I don't know. I'm guessing. I guess we could go through what does a major and a minor cost look like, but
certainly. So a major cost is going to be something big and impactful to the narrative, and a minor cost is going to be something that's going to be inconvenient. And I'm going to say that if you decide to spend a fate point to make it a minor cost, is that you're going to have to reveal your identity as a silver dragon to the mud dragons. No one else in the group will know, because they currently do not know. But the mud dragons will know your true self.
And if I didn't spend any points, it might be something like they're pissed off at us, or something kind of like a diplomatic incident or something.
Yeah. Basically, they would kind of like chase you out of their area. I might have you take a mild consequence as a result of that, like success at a major cost.
So let's see. If I spend both my fate points, then I need an aspect. I need to invoke an aspect for each of those, right?
Correct.
So I think it would be easy for one just to say because I'm the ancient elven wandering mystic, that garners some amount of respect among the various peoples of the region, perhaps.
Indeed.
That could tap that one, and then the other one, maybe because, maybe somehow I could, because I'm carrying that hive, like I'm also representing a whole tribe of another kind of, because I'm representing the people, the Aldranas sentience, or I could wow them that way. Like I have a whole sentient beehive.
That
on
is
my
a
back
great
here.
use of a situational aspect.
So
yeah, you can do that. Now that's going to zero out your fate points, which means if I compel you, you have no way to say no.
That's what makes it fun.
All right, great. Drive your character like a stolen car.
At
the top of your character sheets. I'm sorry, what was that, Tim?
Rented mule.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Instead of a stolen car, it's a rented mule.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Okay, I found where to mark it. So fate points 0.
Great. All right, cool. You've done your thing. Kirst, I saw you had your hand up.
Yeah.
Okay. How are you contributing?
So I feel like in every adventuring story, there's like that moment where you get to the cliff and there's supposed to be a bridge there, and there is no bridge at all. So sort of, we get to a spot where there's supposed to be a path across the swamp, and it's not there, and I just help us push right through it. Like we swim through it, or I get a rope on a tree and we go across, because we don't have time to go around.
You make everybody American Ninja Warrior it through the swamp, do you?
Such a thrill seeker.
Absolutely. All right. I'm going to, let's see.
The swarm of bees just going across.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, that sounds good to me. Go ahead, and it sounds like you're using athletics. So go ahead and make that roll. I'm going to set the difficulty for a 3.
Okay.
And let me know what you get.
Fair +2 result.
All right. So you're down by 1. So that's success at a major cost, or you can spend a fate point to just succeed.
I think I will definitely spend a fate point to just succeed.
All right. Which aspect are you using to justify that?
I would say the constantly seeking new thrills.
Definitely. That definitely works.
I've probably never done this before, but this is exciting. It's a new thing, and I'm really like pumped, and there's adrenaline going through me because I really want this to happen.
Who knows if these jungle vines are going to hold our weight?
Indeed. All right. So you have succeeded. Jeremy, you're the last one. Agatha the Blue. How are you going to help in the swamp?
I'm going to begin by plugging my nose with some leaves that smell a bit better than this swamp does. And I've lost enough patience to know that it's best to start with the least intrusive option. Am I allowed to create an advantage ahead of my actual overcome roll?
I'm going to allow you here to do that. I'm pretty sure that you can do that as part of challenges. I didn't mention it explicitly just to keep us moving, but what advantage would you like to create?
I'd like to pay a fate point to say that I have in my bag just the thing for this situation. I call it liquid death. I rub it all over myself. My skin goes a bit blue. I start to vomit because it works a bit too well, but I just smell like nothing any alligator would really want to eat. I don't even smell alive anymore. It's just disgusting. And with that to mask me, I'm going to try and just stealth my way through the situation. Just sneak and creep through the swamp.
We can definitely do that it that way if you want to, or you can use crafts to create advantage to create that nasty retching potion.
Yeah, do
Oh
that.
yeah, that's what I mean. Like the fate point is to say that I have this incredibly convenient potion, which I can now use crafts to create an advantage with.
Or you could use crafts to create the potion, and then the potion, depending on the roll, that tells you, right, how...
Yeah, there's a lot of ways we can do this. Like, for instance, like creating the potion, like I'm okay with saying that you have all of the ingredients for the potion.
Okay. I was worried that crafts was getting a bit too broad in its use, so I offered the fate point. But if you're
I
fine, I'll just
appreciate
roll
that.
the crafts.
Yeah, well, one of the keys to GMing Fate is also like knowing how to dial in how broad and how thin to have a skill apply. And because we're trying to kind of get through this a little bit quicker, I'm opening that up a little bit wider. But I also think it's fair to assume that given your aspects and your skills, that you would indeed have the components to put together something like this.
Okay, sure.
I'll set the difficulty for your create advantage. I'm going to set it at a 2.
Okay.
So go ahead and roll your crafts.
The result
Let me know
is
what the
a
result
2.
is. All right. So this is create advantage, which means you get a boost instead of an actual advantage.
So this is going to wash off pretty quick as soon as I start
It's a
wading
plus
through the
one?
swamp. So
It's plus. So a boost in Fate terms is a temporary aspect. It's one that exists for but a brief moment, like basically like
Okay.
until your next turn.
Okay.
The way that I usually run boosts, because I don't like coming up with names for things that go away really quickly, is that like I give you a boost and you can use it, which the entire purpose was for Agatha to use it immediately. So it's not really that much of a detriment in this instance. So Jeremy, you said you then wanted to use that to stealth through the swamp.
yes.
So I'll set the stealth difficulty for 3. And then if you want to, you can incorporate that +2 from that boost into your roll or add it after you roll, whichever way you prefer, because
Yes.
it's going to go away if you don't use it anyway. So what is your result?
My result for the stealth is a 2, so I think I will use that boost.
All right. Then that takes it to a 4, which is a success. So you are able to sneak through the Valley of the Alligators. So with all of these things that you have done, you have all managed to gather together and take care of getting through the valley safely. You got to have a whole host of smells. You got to do a little bit of American Ninja warrioring your way through. You encountered some lizard people, the mud dragons. It's been a very interesting adventure getting through this particular valley. On the other side of the valley, it's almost as if like the kind of sun opens up and there is a beautiful forest ahead of you. This is the forest that is the firefly forest. So this is indeed where you'll find the sword of the exalted Fae. You camp for the night. Nothing happens overnight. I'm going to be kind of pushing you guys through just a little bit, given the time that we have. Nothing happens overnight. The next day, you explore the forest. You find that there is indeed kind of a magical blind that between all of you, you're able to find and kind of go behind and see that it leads to like a rope ladder that goes up into the trees. And in the top of the trees, you can no longer see the bottom of the forest. There's like a whole series of like rope bridges and walking paths along really thick branches that basically creates kind of a maze inside of this particular forest itself. You feel like you're kind of adjacent to the real world, almost kind of like on the border of the Fey realms themselves. And you have to navigate your way through this maze in an attempt to find the sword. So at this point, I'm going to have you do a group roll. So in Fate, whenever you do a group roll, as long as everybody can contribute in a way that makes sense, using the same skill, you get a +1 for each additional person who is doing this. So right now you're trying to find your way through this maze to find the sword of the exalted Fae. How do you want to do that, and what skill? How do you want to do that, and then we'll figure out what skill.
It's a maze, huh?
I'd like to leave a trail of everywhere we've already been, so we know if we're going back on ourselves. Maybe I've got some petals I can drop in a trail, or I've got some muck I can like smear on each tree as we go past.
That sounds good. And that sounds like you can create an advantage to help out the ultimate roll. So go ahead and use craft. Difficulty is set at 2.
Whoops, sorry, I didn't put the right one. I'll keep the roll. It's a +1. I rolled really bad.
Okay. So that is short on the create advantage. When you fail to create an advantage, there are 2 options. One is that the advantage does not get created, or 2, it gets created and is more favorable to the opposition. In this instance, I'm just going to have it's failed to be created. Like as you're marking your way, all of the the leaves kind of shed themselves that you've marked, and new leaves grow back. So unfortunately, you make a good effort of it, but it's as if the maze is pushing back.
Could I
Unless
put
you
a
wanted
fate
to
point on it?
Yes, you may.
When I see these leaves replenishing themselves, I realize this isn't going to work. So I have to change my tactic. I get out my little knife and start cutting marks in the bark of the trees a little deeper so it won't heal up for a good day or so.
Sounds good. Then it sounds like you're using your aspect steady hands and a sharp knife to spend that fate point. Excellent. Go ahead and deduct a fate point, and that will be success. So there's now a map where we've been, and I'm going to add 1 free invoke on that. Let me add that.
I'd like to start looking at the various rope bridges and branches, and I'm going to see if there's any path that is more worn than the others.
I will tell you for free that there doesn't seem to be any path more worn than the others. It seems like this place kind of almost heals itself back to its preferred state, which includes the walking paths and the rope bridges. So you can tell. I will tell you that the magic here is keeping everything as pristine as it wants to be. So that I'll give you for free.
Okay. I was going to try and investigate. I'll think of something else. Go ahead.
Like the instinct, both player and character, is to send out parties to go, send out scouting parties to go, try to find a route, and send a group off in this direction, send a group off in this direction, send a group off in this direction. And I mean, there's some marks, but it's bees. They generally just by their very nature know how to get back to the hive. The maze might be able to mess with that, but that's what I think we're going to try to do, is send out some parties and see if we can find a route.
All right. Sounds good. Now, my question is, do you want to do this to create an advantage, or do you want to do this as the roll to get through the maze? Because if you do, it's notice either way. If you do notice, then other players who have notice can add a +1 to your roll if they are contributing.
This might be good to make it sort of the means to get through the maze as opposed to creating an advantage.
Yeah.
I'm just looking and seeing most of us have something in notice, so.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we all do.
Oh yeah, we all have something in notice. So
there you go. So you can go ahead. I'm going to set the difficulty for this at a 6, because the maze is magical and it's very tough to get through. You'll get a +1 for your 4 other players who are looking and trying to get through. And there is the aspect map where we've been that has a free invoke on it that you can choose to use if you need to.
So should I roll first, or should the others roll first to see?
They don't roll. They just contribute a +1 for each of them.
Oh, okay. So I get a +4 on top of that. Okay.
Yes.
I gotcha. Okay, that is a +7 on that roll then.
There we go.
Let's see that. That is a +7.
All right. That is 1 shy, or 1 over rather.
Yes.
One thing that I haven't been using that I'm going to tell you about, but I'm not going to use just because we have time, is that I, as the GM, also get a pool of fate points. And I can spend them to make things more complicated, just like you spend points to do the same. I've chosen not to for today's game, just to kind of keep things moving pretty quick. But that is something, it is an option that the GM will have. So like, for instance, if we were playing this in home game, I would say like, okay, because it's a magical maze as an aspect, magical maze, that would increase the difficulty by 2, meaning that like, okay, so now you've got to ante up, as we go through this. And then you would be like, okay, so I will check map where we've been to get an additional +2, bringing you back to success. And then I have to choose whether or not I'm anteing a fate point on top of that. When you ante-fate points like that to get like results, it's not done until everybody says, I'm done and I feel comfortable with that decision. So there's never a point where you're tricked into spending a fate point. Like, I won't say like, oh, I might spend a fate point, and then you say I will spend a fate point, and then I'm like, okay, I'm not going to, and suddenly you've been tricked out of a fate point. That's not how it works.
All on the table.
Yeah, it's all on the table. Yeah. It's an open book. Like, there shouldn't be any surprises like that. And when I, as GM, play a fate point on an aspect that you don't know about, some aspect of that aspect has to be revealed. So whether or not it's the real aspect or something that you've noticed gets revealed. So for instance, if, sorry for this offshoot, everyone, but if you encountered a vampire, but you didn't know they were a vampire, you might not necessarily get the aspect vampire, but you might see the aspect like, like immune to knives, or like knives don't hurt them. And it's like, oh, wow, knives don't hurt them. And then they get the aspect only seen at night, huh? Doesn't eat garlic pizza,
Doesn't cross running water.
Exactly. So all of the aspects remain true, and they do partially like get revealed to you, but you're not going to it's not going to undo a secret necessarily. But I just wanted to explain that. So you've succeeded. You've managed to find your way through the maze. At this point, it is 20 till 8, or 6 minutes away from when we're going to be wrapping up. So we have a choice to make here. And that is, I'd like to give you an example combat, so that we can go through conflict. That will take us over by probably about 15 minutes. If anyone has a problem with that, message me privately on Discord, and I won't say who, but because I know that some people have times they have to be places, and I know Jeremy, it's very late where you are. So if you are not okay with going over by 15 minutes, PM me on Discord, and I will give you a minute to do that. All right. I don't see any messages coming in, so I'm going to go ahead and proceed.
And I leaned forward and acted like I was, just to give you cover.
Okay, there we go. I just want to respect your time, because I did set time limits for a reason. And weirdly, we've been maintaining them. I didn't actually expect that. All right. So whenever you kind of come out of the maze, there is a large platform area, and in the center of the platform, there is a pillar, and on top of the pillar is this beautiful like rapier. It is like gold. It is like sculpted like in the shape of like plants. The blade itself looks like kind of like almost like a blade of grass coming out. And as you kind of look upon this, you descending from above are a collection of ghoulish looking red caps. So these red caps descend down. Is anyone not familiar with what red caps are?
What is a red cap?
All right. So red caps are fey creatures. They have red hats that they wear. Medieval style hats, not ball caps, that they soak in blood, and they have giant iron boots that they use to kick people. They are not friendly. They are definitely unseelie, and it seems that they are here to defend the sword of the exalted Fae from trespassers. So one of the things that I want to do right now is I'm looking at character sheets and fate points to see if there's any compels that I could do right now. Let's see. Okay, so a compel that I would like, Lily Shades. I have a compel for you. So your free aspect, everybody knows my face. One of the red caps that kind of lands down next to you says, "Oi, I know you. You're Lily Shades. It'd be a real shame to kill you. I think that you should turn around and leave. Don't worry, I'll get the other ones away from you, but I think that you need to go." So your life is going to be complicated because this red cap knows you personally. And I will say that you owe this red cap a favor. And they're just like, you got to leave. Not allowed it.
Yeah.
Would you like the fate point, or would you like to resist the compel?
I think I will take the fate point.
All right. So this means you have to deal with that red cap that you know. And I don't mean deal with as in like kill it, which is an option. But you have to deal with this red cap who knows you. Let's see. Peacebringer, you have none. Let's see. So Peacebringer, well, go big or go home, right? That's what they say. So let's drive this like a stolen car. I'm going to compel your in hiding. Your dragon form is in hiding. And as a result of all of these red caps kind of coming down and threatening you, you like instinctively change back into your dragon form. Which is about the size of like a typical like car, not an SUV, but a typical like Nissan Sentra or something like that, so that you can defend yourself. So you're being compelled to transform into a dragon to deal with this problem, which of course reveals your giant secret. And who knows how everybody else is going to react. Hint, hint. Would you like? Well, you have no choice.
I have no choice. I'll take it.
Yes. You have no choice.
Boom.
Take a fate point.
And then the hive falls to the ground because I don't think my stuff would get morphed into me, but
yeah,
he wouldn't get morphed away to nothing. So I think the hive would, would it?
I'm gonna say that the straps are stuck on some of the spikes that come out of your dragon scales, and the hive is on your back.
Cool,
because that's gonna be
in between
way
the
more
wings.
dangerous.
Yeah.
All right. And then Agatha, let's see. I'm going to save Agatha's for the moment. I've got an idea, but I don't want to use it right now. All right.
Well, that sounds ominous.
Yeah, I know, right?
Sometimes I've got ideas. All right. So the way in Fate, there are any number of ways that you can do initiative. The Fate core has like a specific skill ranking order thing. Nah, that's not good. What I like is referred to as like elective action order or popcorn initiative. And what it is one person, whoever it makes the most sense, goes first. And then that person passes it to another person who passes it to another person. And then after everyone's gone, we recycle the rounds and continue to pass it around. Okay. I like this initiative, and this initiative does have a tendency to favor the players a little bit more than the villains, or at least it favors whoever has aspects. Tim, or whoever has initiative. Tim?
Yeah. So do you use the option where the last person determines who the first person is and they can give it to themselves as well?
That is an excellent question. I usually don't, but I did read that clarification. And so today, yes, the last person to go can pass it to themselves to go first in the next round.
So for the group, that means if we leave it to the enemy to move last, he can move first in the next round.
Yep.
Strategy.
All right, so if you look on the Trello board, I have added in the very first column, you have all of your names, and then I've got red caps and red caps 2 to represent 2 clusters of red caps. Okay.
I have another question.
Yes, Tim.
Can you invoke a compel against yourself or only against others?
You can suggest a compel against yourself.
Okay.
And as long as we all agree that it makes sense.
Perfect.
Yeah, you get the fate point. In fact, I encourage my players to do that because as much as I try to pay attention to everything, until I've got like about a half dozen sessions under my belt, I don't have everyone's aspects memorized.
Okay.
So,
Actually,
all right. Oh, yes.
I'd like to, in that case, propose a compel on myself.
Certainly.
One of these red caps was the subject of one of my past experiments. They're giving off noxious fumes and are incredibly resilient, and they're out to get me in particular.
I love it. I am adding a specific red cap to the initiative order from that compel. Red cap with noxious fumes.
I'd like to propose a compel against myself as well.
Oh, certainly. Tim?
I haven't paid my dues yet, and I need something that is going to buy my way into full membership. So I'm looking around the swords here, and there might be something else. I'm probably a little distracted.
Okay. Then I will add distracted to the aspect board for you. And that's some, let's see. Yeah, that's one way that we could handle it. Another way that we could handle it is that you're going to be trying to find additional treasure and not necessarily fighting the red caps. Which way would you like to go about that, Tim?
I think your way is better. Something that's going to, I'm going to have to come up and overcome something to actually help the group instead of helping myself. I like your idea better.
Okay. Well, then I tell you what, why don't I put in the aspect searching for treasure, which represents what you're doing, and that which will be true because all aspects are true. And if you want to get rid of that aspect, you will have to overcome that aspect to help the group or lean into it and, be a murder hobo. So searching for treasure. Let me just add that here. And that is for Isaac. And there are no free invokes on it. All right. Fantastic. All right. I'm going to let Kirst, would you like to go first for this combat?
Or
All right. Kirst, you're going to go ahead and go first. What would you like to do?
my thought was that I would tell the red cap that I owe this favor to. Sorry, I don't really have time for this, and try to run past him towards the sword.
You don't really have time, and you're going to try and get by. All right.
Yeah.
So the red cap is actually blocking your way.
Okay.
If the red caps in general weren't trying to block your way,
Yeah.
then it would be very easy for you guys to get the sword, but the red caps are actually running interference on that. So what that means is that you need to make an overcome roll to get past the red cap, since you're not trying to take the red cap out. And it sounds like you're trying to force your way past the red cap. Well, so it could be force, or you're trying to dance past. So that would either be physiques or athletics. And looking at your skills, I think I know which one you want to do.
Yeah.
Given that you're trying to get through a group of red caps, not just the one who you know,
Yeah.
I'm going to set that difficulty at a 3.
Okay.
Randy, do I get a fate point for the compel or no?
Yes. Go ahead and give yourself a fate point. I'm sorry I didn't say that explicitly, but that
Okay.
was a good compel.
That was a +3 good result.
Okay, so that is a tie, so that's success at a minor cost. Let's see, success. So you managed to get past all but one of the red caps. So the minor cost is that you're closer to the sword, but there is still a red cap in your way.
I like it. Yeah.
All right, great. Kirst, you get to pick who goes next. Bad guy or like anyone who's on that list in that column there. So red caps or your group.
Let's do Peacebringer. So Jim.
Alrighty. Let's see. I'm a dragon. I think it was kind of a panic reaction. I think as a dragon, I'm not going to be using empathy or rapport or contacts, but he's just going to try to lay down a whole swath. He's just going to breathe fire at the whole field of red caps and just kind of go, and make an advantage, just to create advantage.
Well,
that people can use. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, so what kind of breath weapon does your silver dragon have?
So I was thinking about, in D&D, I think it's maybe that it's some sort of cold weapon or something, but I was thinking just good old, maybe some sort of, maybe just good old fire. That's kind of boring though, but we could do frost.
Okay.
Or what would silver be? I don't know. A moonbeam.
Well, you could create the aspect like frosted battlefield.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to say you're trying to do that in the area. I'm going to say that is. It sounds like. Oh goodness. Why don't we do fight?
Okay.
Since you're trying to kind of like coat the area with ice, I'm going to set the difficulty for this at a 1.
Okay. Let's go. Whoops. What's my fight? +2. So. I got a fair result, +2.
All right. So that is success. You have created the aspect frozen battlefield, and it has a free invoke.
Cool.
So you can choose to use that. Now, do remember that they get to use it too, but that's
applies, because that was my action, right? So
yes.
That's for anybody can use it. That's the kind of the point. It's just it's out there.
Yes, and yeah,
that's true. The opponents could use it too, though.
Well, here's the thing. The opponents can spend a fate point on the aspect, but they cannot use the free invoke that you created.
Okay, good.
The free invoke belongs to you, and you can share it with anyone that you want. I mean, if you want to share it with the red caps, that'd be great.
No, I would. Yeah, I was icing them up was the idea. And then they're kind of hindered by it or something. But
excellent.
Okay, cool.
Jim, who goes next?
Let's have. I want to have the red cap with noxious fumes go next.
All right. The red cap with noxious fumes. Let's see.
Randy, I see you're adding the labels, the green labels, to show that they've used their turn.
Yes.
When you get to the end of the turn on Trello, how do you clear all those green?
By hand.
Individually?
One at a time.
Yes.
Okay.
Go in and clear them all one at a time.
Okay.
Technically, I can just start stacking on colors, but then it gets like a little bit crazy. So no, in between rounds, I'm like click, 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 click. All right, so the red cap, one of the red caps, kind of like the last one to kind of like drop down from the ceiling, has this like purple fumes, these purple black fumes that are kind of like just oozing right off of it, and it is going to charge directly for the most visible opponent, which is this giant silver dragon that's like laying down frost. It's going to run, and it's going to kind of parkour off of some of its frozen companions, and it's going to try and land a solid boot on the silver dragon. So the silver dragon, you are getting attacked by this red cap. You can use physique to kind of like absorb the blow. You could use athletics to dodge out of the way. Or if you can justify another kind of combat type skill to
my stunt is anticipate my opponent. I can use my empathy to read their movement and read their attack and block it. So I will do that. Probably like try to tail swat them out of the way or something as they're coming down.
Sure. So I'm going to go ahead and make my roll. You go ahead and make
opposed
your roll.
rolls, right? Okay.
That's correct.
So...
Oh, I got a good one.
Oh my goodness!
I got a 7.
+3. Oh my gosh! Alrighty then.
Yeah.
I'm only +4. I got. You got 3 shifts.
Excellent.
Or shift 3 on me. I'm gonna take it.
Yeah. This is
really. I was gonna help.
So how's that work?
I don't know. I try to figure it out.
Well, so here are some options with defending. You can spend fate points to justify aspects to take less stress. That is, in my opinion, a last resort. Yeah. The reason for that is that fate points are more valuable on the offense than they are on the defense. Okay.
Yeah. I'm not into consequences yet. I would just be taking stress points, right?
Yeah. So. 3 stress. You can choose to absorb it with 3 checkboxes, or you can choose a mild consequence and 1 checkbox. My recommendation would just be 3 stress boxes to absorb
I'm gonna do that.
But yeah, you get a solid boot to the head from this noxious smelling red cap as it smacks you in the head.
He roars more in anger than in pain, but ticked off.
All right. The red cap is going to pass it to Tim, to Isaac. So Isaac, it is your turn.
I'm going to lean into it, and I'm looking around, and there's a lot of chaos here, and nobody's going to notice something going missing. So I'm looking for something. Looking for anything that I can take back, trophy, whatever, proof that I've done something.
Go ahead and make a burglary roll for me. I'm going to set the difficulty at this at a 3, because you're trying, like, there's this big battle going on. Like, a bunch of the red caps have been like frozen. The battlefield's slippery, all this stuff is going on, and you're trying to loot the place. So it's a little bit more difficult to loot than normal. So you can make a burglary roll against a difficulty of 3.
I get a superb +5.
Excellent. So that is success. You do indeed find something. What cool thing could you find? Oh, I know what it can be. So Tim, I'm sorry, Isaac, as you're searching the area, you're kind of like flipping open chests and finding things. You one of the chests kind of like goes cattywampus, and you notice there's a secret plate underneath there, and you kind of like open it up, and you see down inside, you see that there is a rapier that looks like a human-sized version of the rapier that I described earlier, the Sword of Exalted Fae, because you've noticed that the magic has kind of been broken for you by opening this up, and you kind of look over and you see on the pedestal where there was a human-sized one, you see that the sword itself that's up there is actually like Fae-sized, as if it was for a pixie or a sprite. And you notice like off to the side of this like secret area, there's like a bag and you jingle it and it sounds like coins. So you open it up. But what you find instead are like other replicas of this sword that are super tiny, like for sprites. So, so you think you can tell by like the make of this sword that, this is probably the actual sword. And you've found a stash of replicas that that the red caps supply after people steal the sword. So
Okay.
so yes. So
Then what I'd like to do is pocket the bag of the replica swords
yeah.
and say, guys, I think that's a fake. It's over here. Here's the real one.
All right. Who goes next, Tim?
Let's see. Who hasn't gone? I'm gonna give it to Mackenzie.
All right.
Okay. First off, I want to do a couple of compels at this point.
Well, let's talk about it. What do you want to do?
Well, I think first is Frozen Battlefield upon myself because ice doesn't go well. These don't play well with cold.
Yeah.
And the other one was Carrying the Hive because Peacebringer's kind of getting beat up a little bit, and there's just the Hive just swinging on the back. So.
Well, I tell you what we can do is, so the cult, I want to limit it to one compel.
Okay.
Because I'd like to kind of keep us focused on sort of one thing at a time.
And I will compel on the.
I have a suggestion.
Okay.
Oh, so Frozen Battlefield would kind of like slow you down and make you a little bit less efficient. But I have a compel that might make it a little bit more interesting, which is that the Carrying the Hive gets compelled and the Hive breaks in half. As that red cap that booted him in the face kind of like rolls over onto the back, like splitting the Hive in half. Not destroying the Hive, but just breaking the Hive in half. Like you could put it back together and the bees could rebuild it. But now there are two halves to the Hive rolling around the battlefield.
Rolling about.
Is there honey going everywhere?
Getting trampled underfoot.
Yeah, I'm gonna spend the fate point to have that not happen.
No. We're talking about compels. I'm not officially offering that to you.
Okay.
But because I mean, if you want to, we can also do a simpler compel, which is that the Hive is just rolling around the battlefield.
I like that more, where it's just like.
Yeah. Now,
on that.
So this right here is an example of working out the right kind of compel. So sometimes a suggested compel might be too weak or too strong. And, us as a group, it's our responsibility to modulate it. So, so now we've got a good one. So Carrying the Hive has now been Hive rolling around the battlefield. All right. So that gives you an extra fate point, Aldrina.
Soccer.
Yeah.
Yes. And now it is your turn.
Yeah. Well, with it moving around and sort of off the dragon, that as much as it's still in a precarious state, that alleviates sort of like the dragon's getting attacked and the hive's there, so we have the wiggle room. I want to see. I think first thing is always see if I can scare the red cap. Like the skill thing is use provoke to try to get one of the red caps. Like, oh no, bees.
Yeah, no. You're basically attacking them with provoke as a nest of bees. So yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
All right.
They're going to resist that with their willpower.
Okay.
Let's see. I got a poor result, -1. That's great.
I got a good result, +3.
Excellent. That is a 4 stress hit against the red caps. So I'm going to have that just be the red caps 2 group. The red caps 2 group, they scatter. They know that, I mean, their secret has been revealed, that the real sword, like what's there isn't, like the real sword has been discovered. And so like they see a dragon and the swarm of bees, and that group of red caps is just like, nope, we're out. We don't have, we don't have the, oh goodness, what's the shot that you need for the anaphylactic shock? So they just go.
Right.
So yes, they get taken out with that. So, great. So Mackenzie, who goes next? The red caps or Jeremy?
Let's have the red caps go next.
All right. These are the red caps that are over by our friend Lily. So let's see. Oh, goodness. They just heard what Isaac said. They saw the bees. They see the dragon.
They probably see their friends running away as well.
They do. They definitely do. But they also see the big red cap lay one down on the dragon.
Yeah.
But you know what? They're actually going to, all of them are going to run over to Isaac. Isaac, where you've kind of like uncovered where the real sword is, and you're kind of like pointing, like that's where the real sword is. That's where the real sword is. They're going to attempt to get the sword out of the hiding place and take off with it. Are you going to resist them trying to do this? Tim? You're muted, Tim.
Prep. I'm going to resist.
Okay, great. How are you resisting them doing this?
Crap. I'm going to try to hide if I can.
You're going to try and hide the sword that you found?
Yep. I'm going to be like, oh, it's not here. Well, I'm gonna hide the fact that I've got it and try to run away. I'm like, oh, well, leave it alone and run away.
Okay, so you've got it on you and you're trying to like play keep away with them. So, okay, great. You can resist what they're doing with stealth. So they are going to go ahead. They are trying to get the sword. They got a great 4 result.
And so did I.
Excellent. So that is a tie. So that gives them a boost that they can use next time on their turn. Jeremy, it is your turn.
Okay. I'm a little glad, actually, that we established that if you go last, you can go twice, because I have something planned. I want to say that before the battle, the red caps lurking up in the trees, there were 2 in particular, locked in a lover's embrace. And as they saw us approaching, they promised each other very solemnly that they would survive the battle and they would find each other after it was done. And this would be their final fight defending the sword before they moved to the new tree on the other side of the forest where they'd been carving out the little home.
Spend a fate point and that will be true.
I'm going to spend a fate point to make that true. And Agatha is more empathetic than you'd think from the look of her. She's just kind of scrutinizing the faces of all these red caps, trying to create the advantage that she will spot one pair of these lovers. And that'll be this turn.
All right. So you're creating an advantage to be able to with your snap diagnosis. Is that correct?
Well, the snap diagnosis is for physical maladies. This is just a straight up empathy roll. I want to see the 2 that are shooting each other those concerned looks and they're watching each other's backs. Okay. I'm looking for emotional weakness.
All right. Go ahead and make an empathy roll. I'm going to set the difficulty for this at a 1 because with the dragon here, they're awfully concerned.
Hopefully, that makes them more concerned about each other. The results are 5. in total.
All
I got a
right.
lucky
That
roll.
is success with style. And I'm going to add
Awesome.
emotional weakness to the aspect board. And I will give it 2 free invokes because you succeeded with style. So, all right. There it is up on the board. All right. So, Jeremy, who goes next?
I'm going to pass it back to myself, if I may.
You may.
I'd like to create an advantage with fight now.
All right.
Waiting for the perfect moment when the dragon's roar has distracted one of these lovers, I will slip up behind the other one, press the knife to their throat, grab them in a headlock, and try and use that as leverage. I'm going to say to all the red caps, everyone calm down. Let's not lose our heads over this.
All right. That sounds like a notice. And I'm going to set the difficulty for that one at a 4 because the battlefield is pretty crazy.
Cool. I believe my notice is... Oh, it's a 2. Okay, the result is a 3, but I will use one of those emotional weakness invokes. So I
All right.
take
Sounds
that off
good.
now.
Yep. Excellent. All right. Who goes next, Jeremy?
Could I that was a
That was a create
advantage roll, or
advantage.
that was-
Yes. That was create advantage. And it was, what were you trying to,
let's call it hostage situation. I want one of the red caps that I know that at least one of the other red caps desperately cares for as a hostage.
sounds good. All right. I have added it and I've added a free invoke to it. Yeah. So at one point, whenever Peacebringer roars, you manage to get yourself into that position. And the red cap, is that you're threatening, just kind of like starts crying. And the other one's like, no, don't do it. Please don't do it. No.
Okay, I'm going to pass initiative to the red caps. Get their turn out of the way early.
All right. The red caps are just going to be like, you've already found the sword. We'll leave you be. Please just let her go. Let us go.
You can go. You can all go if you go.
The red cap kind of turns to the one with the noxious fumes. They're like, we'll go, but that one we don't really have any control over.
Leave that one to me. I've been trying to cure it for some time. We'll take it with us.
All right. Those red caps will surrender, and we'll take them out of initiative. So now, just so that we understand, I could have played that differently because they're not really being taken out in that moment. But sometimes the situations of a conflict, it's more fun to just say, okay, that's where that particular group ends.
They conceded.
Rather than trying to like play it until like they're all dead. So at this point, let's see. So that was red cap. I'm going to pass it to Peacebringer, to Jim, and this is where we're going to end the conflict. So Jim, I'm assuming that you're going to take out the last red cap in spectacular fashion because we are over time.
Yes, we will do that. I only have 1 fate point, but hopefully, folks, you can chip in if I need it. So, just going to go ahead and
I'm just gonna
chomp him.
say probably.
gonna chop him. So, I mean, I only have +2 to fight. I'm better on defend, but that's okay. So, we're gonna do.
Well, you also have a bunch of free invokes.
Oh, free invokes! I forgot about that.
Frozen battlefield, emotional weakness.
yes.
Hostage situation's actually gone now.
Would the emotional weakness apply to the?
No.
I think that one's gone along with.
But there's frozen
red caps.
battlefield.
I'll do
Yeah.
Well, we'll see if I need it, which I probably will. Then I will do it.
All right.
So we're gonna fight.
Yeah.
+2. Fight. Average result. What did you get for defend?
It's a good question. I didn't roll anything. Let's see. To defend, this crazy MFer is not good on the defense, but mostly offense. I got a -1.
Oh, so I got 2 shifts.
Yes.
Do
Which
I
I'm going
need-
to say at this point is enough to take them out because we're kind of at time.
Okay.
So,
And then if it wasn't, I could say frozen battlefield and he slipped.
And we
You
could
know,
finally
let's
say
go
invoke and
ahead
yeah.
and check that out. Invoke it. He slipped. I was able to smack him down when he was prone or something like that.
So
absolutely.
if we're just talking about like mechanics and things, if he were to use the free invoke, it wouldn't disappear. We could still invoke frozen battlefield by using a fate point, right?
Correct. Yeah. The aspect is valid for as long as it makes sense to be valid. So the frozen battlefield makes sense. If the red caps used like somehow countered that, then they could as one of their actions try to overcome it and get rid of that aspect. Like maybe they use torches to burn away the frozenness of it. But it's valid as long as it is valid. So, which I know is kind of like a circular statement, but it
No,
it's
it
kind of the way
answered
it
the
goes.
question. I just want to know if the free invoke made it disappear, and it didn't. We could still invoke it if we needed to until it
Yeah.
went away.
No, the free and yeah, it's still there.
Okay.
All right. So we've gone through character creation and now we've played a little bit of Fate. I'd like to open up the floor for any questions that you might have for about 5 minutes. And then I want to conclude the way that I usually do with games, which is something that you liked and or something that you didn't like about the game or the session. So, so I'm opening the floor to any questions about Fate that maybe didn't get answered today or that you have that's popped up as a result of what we've done.
No questions from me per se, but
We kind of handled healing, but we didn't need it.
Yeah.
We talked about that before.
Yeah. Healing in Fate isn't quite what you like think about in like D&D terms. Like you don't replenish hit points in the middle of a combat, and you also don't get back consequences or stress slots. So the way that so at the end of this combat, you guys managed to leave the maze. The stress boxes all reset. Anyone who took a mild consequence or anyone who took a consequence could try to overcome the consequence to have it start healing. And then you would have your stress boxes for the next session, the next scene that involved anything that needed stress boxes. And then the consequences, they go away at different rates. But in combat, had you decided to use the healing poultices, that would be a way to counter in-fiction problems that your character might have had or wounds that your character had. So for instance, the bloody nose that the dragon may have had from being kicked, could have used a healing poultice to fight back against that red cap that with the noxious fumes. And so it's not healing per se. It's really just keeping you going and keeping things going. So
one other thing that I think I've seen is you don't need to fight until you're dead. You fight till you withdraw. How does that work?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat the end of that? You fight until
you don't fight till you're dead. You can fight till you withdraw. You can withdraw.
Yes, you have the option at any time in a combat to concede. You can. It has to be before an opponent rolls. So if I say okay, it's the red cap's turn and he's going to kick your head in, you can choose to go, whoa. I concede. I'm done. Let's negotiate my out. But if you wait until after the roll, then we have to resolve the roll, and then you have the option to concede again. So you kind of want to pace it. If you decide that you're going to concede, you're going to want to make it before you get taken out, because if the red cap stomps your head in, the being taken out may represent being dead. But if you choose to concede, then you can kind of narrate that okay, so he stomps me unconscious, you know? So you get to have control over what happens to your character a little bit more. And that gets negotiated because bad guys will concede as well. So for instance, like the red caps that had the knife to their throat, they conceded. They just wanted to leave in peace. You got to keep the sword. Everybody was happy. It was a good concession. So it's a good way to keep bad guys going longer in Fate for the GM. So like, you know, the evil wizard, like, you know, takes a big hit, decides to concede and withdraw. Players don't like that very much, but you know, as long as I, as the GM, leave the players with some success, which is that the evil villain's plot didn't go off.
Recurring nemesis.
I mean,
Exactly.
it's interesting. In any game, you can do that as the GM, but in Fate, it's a specific, very big mechanic, like that's built in. That's just even in the documentation, it's made emphasized more than just defeat or you know being taken out. It's like just is it's equivalent. Whereas in other games, it just seems like you never. There's no. It doesn't specifically codify that. Okay, this is how you retreat, or you know you concede or you know escape. That you know it's just as equally viable. Like you can do it as a GM, say I decide my guy's going to do a full withdrawal or whatever, but it seems like the system's more conducive to it, I guess.
Yeah. And it rewards you for doing so, because if you concede,
that's right.
You gain a fate point for conceding, and you gain a fate point for every consequence that you've taken in the scene.
Yeah.
So if you took a mild consequence and you concede, you would get 2 fate points at the end. It is a reward for kind of like just withdrawing. Whereas a lot of other games, there's no good out. Like in Dungeons and Dragons, unless everybody decides to rout, and you choose to leave, there's no upside to that, because everybody's just mad because you left, and then you have to sit there bored while everybody else keeps fighting. For like, you know, 2 more rounds, which is like an hour real time, you know? And so like, it's a problem. Concessions also have to kind of be negotiated. And one of the things that I take into account for that is like, why are we having a conflict to begin with? So like whenever you want the big bad to leave, you know, you have to think about, as a GM, you have to think about, why are the heroes in this conflict? So for instance, for you today, there was a conflict because there were opponents trying to stop you from getting something. And when those opponents left, you still, you achieved what you wanted to, and the opponents managed to get what they wanted. But if you have like a big bad, sometimes the players want the big bad to just be dead. But what they're actually doing is trying to stop the undead army from rising. And sometimes I, as a GM, have to remind them, I'm like, okay, so just to let you know, he wants to concede so that he can live another day. If you don't want to let him concede to live another day, you can definitely kill him. But the army, like enough of the spell went off that the army is getting raised, and you're going to have to deal with that. So like, what choice do you collectively want to make? And so like, and then you just deal with the fallout of those decisions.
Yeah. I imagine that can also probably represent like the political opponents a lot more. Like the big heroes break into their house or whatever, and they have them at gunpoint, and they just surrender. They're just like, okay, you got me.
Yeah. I've had plenty of bad guys that like all the players thought there was going to be a big long battle, and like the bad guy was just like, listen, I'm really like the political realm, I will eviscerate you, but like you've got guns drawn on me. Just take me to jail. I'll hire lawyers and get out. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that the overall impression for me, having never played this before, this is more like some other mechanics of games. It's more like playing a computer RPG, where this is more like a collaborative storytelling, a collaborative fiction writing event in a way, because we're negotiating. Well, I think we should do this, no that, you know. So it's a lot different. Actually, it feels a lot different in my first impression today.
I think a big part of that is it puts some of the storytelling onto the players, which, depending on the group of players you have, can be a really, really good thing, or something you need to work with them on.
Yeah. Yeah.
True.
Excellent. So I'm going to have us wrap up with something that we liked or didn't like about this session. And if something that you didn't like, you will not hurt my feelings. So being honest helps me grow. Anyone can volunteer to go.
I like the fact that my greed actually advanced the story. Something
Yeah,
that
that surprised me a little bit.
something that advanced my personal story, advanced the story for everybody. I like that.
I want to say that that's actually true for, I think, most, if not all, of the characters. All of our quirks and idiosyncrasies became a part of the story that made some interesting moments happen. And that was something I really liked about your GMing style, that you wove all that into it. We came up with some pretty weird stuff, but it all had a way to contribute, and that was super cool.
Thank you.
The only thing I'd say I didn't like, and this is not even a proper criticism, because this was a kind of tutorial, right? We're here to showcase what the game can do in a limited time, so of course it's going to have that driving plot that pulls us from one moment to the next, and it makes total sense in this case. But it's different from how I would normally experience a game of Fate, where it's not the case that the players are being pulled along so much. There's more, with the luxury of time, there's more character moments, and there's more room for, like, not meandering, but choosing what kind of path you want to wander down.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it couldn't possibly have happened here, but
It
that's
was more of
I-
a defined convention style game.
Yeah, I put you guys on
totally.
some pretty heavy tracks.
Yeah.
And I 100% agree. Like, that's the worst. I love meandering character craziness. As long as things are interesting and everyone's engaged, I as a GM am fine with, like, real weird stuff happening in conversations. I like to feed into it, but I agree. The tracks were tough today. In fact, I had my wife text me just a little bit ago. She's like, "Are you almost done yet?" So,
My wife just popped in a little bit ago. I was like, "Are you done?" I'm like, "No." See, people.
I actually like the pacing for a sort of tutorial game, because you can get bogged down in all the what ifs and all these little things. It's like, well, this is a one shot, and we're not carrying our characters forward or anything. So being able to understand the mechanics better is more what I'm interested in than.
Definitely.
I equate it to a convention game. I've gone to Gen Con every year except for this one. But yeah, that's what it is. You have to understand these are rented mules, and the story's got to go from beginning to end, and it's got a path that's got to go through quickly.
Yeah. And it's great. Like, I loved Fate, but if I didn't like Fate, we would have been over in time, and I would have been done with it.
Mm-hmm. I love non-lethal end to conflict. That doesn't ever happen in my regular campaign in a different system that I'm in. It's just not a thing. It ends with one side down or the other every time.
Yeah, I as a GM am a big. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mackenzie.
Yeah, I just liked finally being able to learn Fate. It's been sort of on my to learn list for. Of course. Am I back?
You're back.
There?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. I see it. I hear the and I get the note. Anyways, I liked just finally being able to learn Fate. I've had the PDFs for ages since, they're very nicely pay what you want. And it's just needing to be able to break into it. And because it is just different, more being a generic narrative focused RPG. I guess
breaking up again.
from. There's a
Yeah.
lot of
No.
books.
Yeah.
I like
Well-
that you can play a sentient swarm of bees.
And that's with
Yeah.
just base core
Yeah.
Fate.
Yep.
Yeah, it's yeah. So something that I liked is I liked bringing all 5 of you along for a ride to play Fate, to help introduce this game that I love to people who I hope will also love it. If you walk away and you never play another Fate game, that's okay. If you walk away and play many more Fate games, that's great too. But I love introducing people to this game that I really enjoy and really love. The only downside that I would say is that we went over time, which means that next month, whenever I do this, I'm going to plan accordingly. And I apologize to all of you for going 30 minutes over. So I appreciate you staying with us.
Worth it.
Definitely.
30 minutes of extra awesomeness. It was a fantastic session. Thank you for
Nice.
running it. Thanks
Nice
everyone
meeting
for
you all.
joining in.
Thank you for everybody playing.
Yes.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and
Yeah,
stop the
thank you all.
stream. So good night, everybody in internet land.
Good night.